Hey, everybody, welcome to our Monday live program. We're going to have a great program today. It's going to be a fantastic program. But first of all, just a couple of things to bring to your attention. If you're in Southern California this Wednesday, just a couple of days from now, at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we're going to have a guest at our church, Chad Bianco. He's the sheriff of Riverside County. He's the sheriff that's been making waves all across the nation. And that's just a great opportunity that we have to have him come out to 412 Church this Wednesday evening. I hope that you can join us. We'll put the description of the location in the bottom of this YouTube as soon as my guys hear what I just said and do it. And then also, Jan Markell, just to give you a heads up, if you watch her, which most of you probably do, her YouTube was taken down. It will be up, I think, in about 7 more days, something like that. So just so you know, want to let you know what's going on there, and it's been happening to all of us. And I have a special guest with me today, as you saw in the promos probably already. Monkey is joining me today. Monkey, welcome to the program. This is great having you here.
Hey, brother, appreciate it, man. Always good to be back. Always good to hang with you. So
this is going to be good. So we have a lot to talk about, a whole lot to talk about. So we're watching what's going on in Canada. And apparently, it sounds like from what I'm hearing, and I think you're hearing the same thing, that they're looking at martial law in Canada over this trucker protest. Is that what you're hearing?
Yeah, I'm hearing the same thing. Now, I did kind of dig in a little bit on it, and it looks like Trudeau had to go speak to his cabinet and actually get approval to do so. And I had heard that the cabinet wasn't for that. However, it doesn't mean they didn't do that, right? They tend to be pretty persuasive, and you know how it goes with the politics, right? Everybody starts, greasing each other's skids, and oh well, if you do this for me, we'll give you this over here. And so there's no telling what was going on. I'm sure there's a lot of horse trading happening behind the scenes. But now I've also heard reports that there are a lot of military vehicles in Quebec right now, as well as helicopters. So that's just from folks that follow me, part of the Monkey Nation, that are out there, eyes on the ground. So it's kind of interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, I've received a few emails in the last couple of hours from people from Canada that are saying, hey, this is going down, please pray for us, and that type of thing. So everyone, listen, we're going to take some live questions from you in just a minute. If you are in Canada, send us some reports at that time so we can keep everybody updated. And we want to do that as much as we can. And okay, Monkey, let's go on from this. We'll come back to Canada as soon as we get more information on it.
Sure.
I want to ask you about what's the United States. You woke up to a report this morning. I guess it came out a while back, or started making the circuit over the last week. I saw it yesterday. I'm not sure. You saw it over the weekend or something. But the world is waking up.
Security on the terrorism deal.
Yes, that.
I got to tell you, that one is the first one that I've seen where I've thought, boy, this could really get kind of slippery slope quickly, because it's basically saying if you have any kind of anti-government speak, that you can be considered a terrorist. It also basically says that, anything you do, like if you oppose what happened with the votes, if you oppose what happened with the medical stuff, if you oppose any of this kind of thing, you can be, viewed as a terrorist. And then it also says that they're looking at actors that are basically, and that I see as folks like us that are out here talking about what's going on, at the ground level, which is not good. That kind of puts us right in the crosshairs. So that is a bit concerning. It looks like they are certainly starting to lean more towards communism, because this is the kind of thing you'd see in Russia or China or, other places around the world that don't have this freedom of speech, right?
Yeah. So this article says, I think this is what you're referring to. The threat actors are accused of seeking to exacerbate societal friction, to sow discord and undermine public trust in government institutions, to encourage unrest, which could potentially lead to acts of violence. Citizens are also warned of mass casualty attacks and other acts of targeted violence by those acting in furtherance of ideological beliefs or personal grievances. So, I mean, we've been hearing it for years now about how there's us, for example, or anybody that has a conservative point of view or a biblical point of view actually believes the Bible is true, that they're labeling us as terrorists. Once they moved on from 9/11, these political leaders in the United States of America have moved over to people who are white and church-going, want to keep laws in place, law-abiding citizens and the whole bit. People who believe in the Second Amendment, people who believe in the First Amendment, and it's a labeling, I guess you would call it. So you put this label on these people, and now once you're marked as a terrorist, it's pretty much, I mean, what happens at that point?
Yeah, I mean, they're probably going to freeze your assets, and they're probably going to start taking your stuff. And I imagine they're going to shut down anything you got, your channels and everything else. So that's kind of, it looks like the threat that's on the near horizon. It's very interesting, the way that it is written, and it's very broad brush, right? And it's pretty much all it takes is for you to say the wrong thing at one point. That's with these live shows, you never know. From time to time, you may say something that you're like, and that probably wasn't the right way I wanted to put that. But yeah, you could be deemed a terrorist, which is, you can't fly, you can't do a lot of things. That's if they don't come kick down your door and take you away, right? So
yeah, if they don't take you away, close your bank account, seize all of your money, take your house, take all of your assets, which they could do once you've been labeled by the government as a terrorist.
Yeah, 100%. It's a scary thought, but it looks like it's not far off the horizon, that they put the resources in play to execute, and to the budget, the everything. I mean, they're standing up organizations to go after them. I mean, you think about it. You've got parents that stand up for their kids in school. They're labeled, as terrorists, right? Domestic terrorists, because they're voicing their opinion against something that they feel is wrong. That's really the fundamentals of our country is the ability to go out and basically, in a non-violent type of way, voice your opinion on something. If the government is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, we the people have an obligation to hold that government responsible for their actions. And that is through peaceful demonstrations and through, that kind of thing. Now, I've never been in a demonstration in my life, but it's still our right to go do so, right? Our right to bear arms, our rights, our right to freedom. All right. We do have a right to freedom in this country, and those freedoms are being taken, by the hour, it seems like. So it's kind of scary.
It is a right to be able to say what we're saying right now. Just talking about this, bringing up this subject could be problematic for us. And if we go back to 2019 and people, if you said, hey, there's going to be lockdowns coming, there's going to be this medical thing going on, and this is why it's going to happen, people would have said, you're nuts. Nobody's ever going to comply. Maybe 5% of the people will comply. Well, here we are. So as we're warning people what we see coming, this is troubling. And I think people really need to wake up, especially as right now we're talking about Canada. I mean, what's already happening there in Canada while we're looking at this in the United States. I look at this also. I'm in California. I know that the governor of California emptied a whole bunch of prisons. Yeah. And you go, okay, why do, it's like, so this is why prisons are empty. You brought up on your program about the different facilities that there are here across our country. What are these facilities for? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, that's what's crazy is that there are, it just blew me away when I was digging in, because when I started finding the camps that were being stood up for immigration, I kind of delved in and I started looking at lists of known camps. Well, then all of a sudden it kind of bled into detention centers and prisons. And the statement was that the United States has the largest immigration system in the world in terms of processing immigrants into our country through that system. And those systems include, immigration camps, detention facilities, prisons, whatever it may be. And not just that, but they've got a fleet of aircraft that are basically flying around 24/7, moving these immigrants around and out and into our country. I got to tell you, it's quite eye-opening when I started finding these things, because I was like, this can't be real. It can't be, this can't be what I'm seeing. And it actually is. And it's almost like it's surreal, when you start watching it. Mm-hmm. And I don't see any of it getting smaller. In fact, every time I see things happening around the world, I see them adding to the camp structure. For example, all of this stuff going on in Ukraine right now, they just moved a whole bunch of troops in to build this giant camp structure facility in Poland, and the same thing up in Germany, because they're expecting a ton of people to come out of the Ukraine, and they're going to have somewhere to process them. Now, the key word is processing, because as they get them into this immigration camp and they start to vet them and let them out, they're probably not going to let them into Poland and Germany. They're probably going to put them on airplanes and fly them into the United States and around the world, because that's what we do. That's part of that great reset that we, watch so closely, is that forced immigration, right? Where and that's exactly what we got going on here. It's you can't make this stuff up. It's absolutely crazy.
No, it is really amazing to watch what's happening right now. In one sense, it's remarkable because we can see the developing of the prophetic signs, everything coming about. But at the same time, if you don't have the Bible to guide you, I mean, it's so easy to get knocked off to the right, knocked off to the left, not staying on that path and understanding that we are warned of these days. But there's some very evil people that are running this world right now, and that would get me thrown in jail. It might, a year from now, go back, pick up this recording, and there you go. But it's real. So as we look at these, we hear about camps. I remember years ago when I first started hearing about FEMA camps, and I don't know if that gets me in trouble for mentioning that, but you go, okay, all these things that are supposedly for our good. And then I'm looking going, I just don't trust. I do not trust these people who are leading this.
No, that's to your point. What we were talking about earlier is the fact that we're being lied to on a regular basis. It's they actually project what they're going to do and then tell you they're not doing it. And, that's the crazy thing, is that they'll say to us, the perfect example, right? Our administration was just talking about how you're going to have, Russia's going to put a false flag into play, and that's going to kick this whole thing off. And I'm thinking, well, whoa, that's a pot calling the kettle black. I mean, our government, they have a history of doing just that very thing. They have a history of actually turning over, governments and pushing, supporting coups and interfering in elections and all kinds of stuff. It's things that you don't expect our government to be doing. And then it's all of a sudden you get a look behind the curtain and you go, holy mackerel, man, we are that. It's exactly all the things that we're pointing at everybody else doing. That's us. Yeah. That's what we're doing. It's insane.
It is. And, so you start looking at things like that. What's happening is you've seen things I've never been a part of. I've paid attention to things because I've been teaching Bible prophecy for about 30 years now. So I've had to look a little bit beyond the veil, but I still don't have certain insight like someone like you does. But what's happening now, a lot of people in the public are starting to wake up and go, hey, wait a minute, our government, who I've trusted. Bill Maher, I have a clip, I'm probably going to play it sometime this week in an update. He was on his program just the other night. He was calling out Trudeau. And a warning, look, what you're doing is that's Hitler type of thing.
Yeah, it is definitely slippery slope. And if he goes through with what we think he's going to do, based on, hearing the talk about large amounts of military vehicles on the ground and hearing helicopters, and that's in Quebec, then, you've got the stuff going up in Ottawa, which is, they're gathering right off of his doorstep. Like, he can't even go into work because they're occupying there, right? But this is peaceful. Now, I don't know the Constitution in Canada, but peaceful protest is our right here in the U.S. I mean, we have the right to gather and peacefully protest if we don't agree with something. And so when you watch that stuff take shape over the border, it definitely gets your attention. Now, here's the other thing too that got my attention is in the past 5 days, I've watched flights come down from Canada. I watched one C-130 go into Guantanamo Bay, which was a little concerning. But over the weekend, I watched them fly into Yuma and various locations from Canada into our country, which is not uncommon. We do get them to come, we get foreign military sales. They're part of a lot of the exercises we do and things like that. So it's not uncommon. They're on the F-35 program. But over the weekend, I watched Netherlands, France, Canada, Germany, all coming into our country and all going to different locations. And I thought that was kind of an interesting deal because you just don't know. And that's the thing with all of the things that you think you can normally trust, like what's going on in Canada. You wouldn't expect that out of the Canadians, to take military force against people that are peacefully protesting would be pretty brutal. But you see it happening and you go, wow, this is how long till that's here,
Yeah, well,
it's crazy.
No kidding, especially with the document this DHS document, you're looking at go, okay, because I did hear over the weekend, and it was just, you just hear these things. I think it was yesterday that if there was this truck convoy, similar one here in America, that they were threatened with these truckers would be threatened with being arrested as a terrorist based upon that document. And you're looking going, listen, in China, it's a social credit system.
Yeah.
And so you lose certain privileges, you can have all kinds of trouble. But here they're actually talking about labeling you as a terrorist. I mean, this takes the social credit system to another level that we aren't necessarily witnessing coming out of China yet. This is just radical. Shut down every single opposing voice with the threat of you're in jail, you're done, it's over.
Yeah. Well, and that's a different process too. When you get labeled as a terrorist, man, there's not necessarily, I mean, we all have right to fair trial and things like that. But when you get labeled as a terrorist, I'm sure you're limited on a lot of the things you can do to defend yourself, I would imagine. But yeah, it's certainly not good. It's and I don't see it actually going back. You know what I mean? I think at this point they are going to continue on with that. It's almost like they've just completely thrown out the Constitution. They've got their own little framework of how they're going to play in the sandbox. And if you don't agree with it or you oppose it or you do anything, get out of line, they're going to just put that fear in you, right? That's keep you from doing anything.
That will definitely stop a lot of people from reacting when you hear something like that. You think be separated from your wife, separated from your kids like that, no phone, no contact, very bleak. Okay, I want to switch over to back to Ukraine. So this article out of Zero Hedge from just the other day says they don't just lie to us about wars, they lie to us about everything. Continues, propaganda isn't just about manufacturing consent for wars and ridiculous governmental measures we never normally accept. That's what most people think of when they hear that word. But there's so very, very much more to it than that. The lion's share of propaganda goes not toward convincing us to accept new agendas of the powerful, but toward keeping us entranced in the status quo dream world, which enables the powerful to have power in the first place. Toward normalizing status quo systems and training us to shape ourselves to fit into them like neat little cogs in a well-oiled machine. And it's not even a grand monolithic conspiracy in most cases. The giant corporations who indoctrinate us with their advertisements, their Hollywood movies and shows, their apps, their websites, news media, and on down the list. And so you really, it's what you were already saying is people have had no idea the covert operations our own government has been involved in overthrowing other governments.
Yeah, Benghazi. Look at that one.
Right? There you go. I mean, and where's Hillary?
Yeah, nothing happened, right?
Yeah, and what do you think? Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, guess who occupies Benghazi today? Soviet Union or Russia? Not the Soviet Union, but Russia, right? They stood up shop right there as soon as we did our thing and we bailed out of there. They came in, stood up location. They occupy the runway. They've got S-300, S-400 missile systems in there, all kinds of different military vehicles right there in Libya now. And it's just, it's just amazing, that we create these vacuums. Same thing with Afghanistan, right? We bailed out of there, and the next thing you know, who's in there? China and Russia. They're all kind of fill into the vacuum. It's crazy. We can't be that stupid in terms of what we do, right? There's got to be some thought to it. There's got to be some intention to it. It just has to be.
There's intention. There's something going on, which brings me back to Ukraine. Okay, you mentioned the false flag and the whole bit. Okay, so Alex Jones has been accused of years for saying, hey, watch out for the false flag. Here's the reality of it. The government has been involved in false flags, which I'm sure we'll get in trouble for saying that. But they have been, and now they're throwing this out while we're watching for the Russian false flag. My personal take when I look at the situation with Ukraine is that the U.S. government wants a war with they want this to happen, and
I would agree.
And that's what's really going on here.
Yeah. So I was just talking about this in my sit rep earlier today. The fact that there's two things that have to kind of make you lean towards why this war is inevitable and why I think we're going to make some big moves over there right now. Because one, you've got to focus on Biden and on Hunter, right? Between those two, there's not good press between the Ukraine and them, right? Zelensky basically has the two of those guys in his pocket because of he probably has enough information to incriminate both of them, I would imagine, right? And so they need him to go away. And so how do you do that? You let Russia come in, you basically bait Russia, right? Mm-hmm. They come in and basically take him out and overthrow, and that becomes part of Russia. Well, then the Zelensky problem goes away. The other piece of this too is the fact that you've got a president that is sitting that has a 60% disapproval rating, right? Everything he touches, it just goes complete, hell in a handbasket, right? I mean, you look at the economy, we've got the highest inflation in 40 years. You look at our supply chain, shelves are running out of stuff. You can't get it. It takes 6 months to get a car. The price or the price of everything from the inflation standpoint, meat is up 40%. Used car sales are up 45%. I mean, there's these crazy numbers of inflationary, just it's off the chain, right? And so he needs a distraction. And you see that with anything. When Clinton had the Lewinsky thing going on, right? What did he do? He created a distraction to take all eyes off of that whole thing. And I want to say it was he bombed something, a tent with some camels in it or something in some country, that basically took eyes off of that situation. And every president has done that, right? They create some type of a diversion. And we fall for it lock, stock, and barrel. It's insane. So I do see that as kind of what's happening. And you hear it, right? You hear, it's not just Russia saying this, that, hey, you know what? The U.S. is basically baiting us. They're creating something that's not really there. But I would disagree. It looks like it is there. But you hear other countries saying the same thing, that they're being kind of baited by the United States, like they're it's propaganda, so to speak, right? What they're reporting isn't really the fact. And so, it's like you said, it's all lies and you don't know what to believe. Somewhere in the middle, in the mix of all that is the truth. But yeah, I think the Ukraine is probably inevitable. I will tell you this: over the weekend, when Flashbang was up at Camp David and he talked to, Ukraine, and then he talked to Putin. After his conversation with Putin, which was before the Ukrainian guy, I saw a pretty good uptick within about an hour and a half, 2 hours of aircraft flights, C-17s headed into Europe. And so it's been like that for the last 48 hours, just nonstop planes back and forth over there. So, and I mean C-17, so we're moving assets into that, not necessarily troops. Troops I'm watching on other flights, but we're moving a lot of folks into that area, which would indicate to me that we're going to be knee deep in this thing.
Wow. So I also see a major distraction necessary. And when I bring in the biblical factors to this the world we're living in right now and how fast everything is happening, the need to label a certain sector of American society as terrorists. You start looking at everything. From a biblical perspective, I don't think these globalists are going to let up on the gas pedal. And the COVID narrative is going away. There's it's changing. We're hearing about, even in California, the mask mandate's going to be lifted, and they're going to be lightening up on the other mandates and so forth. Pretty much everybody in the world saw the Super Bowl yesterday with unmasked celebrities everywhere. But the narrative's changing, and I've been talking about that for a couple of months. But I don't think the globalists will let go. They've advanced the whole world. Incredible. The ground or how far along they brought the masses of people in the world to come under their compliance. So when we look at it, economic catastrophe, a war, something like Ukraine as distraction, and not only that, and you would be able to speak to this, from what I understand, when there's a war, like if the U.S. goes into war, the people in general on both sides of the aisle, the right and the left, they rally together for a while. Yeah. And you get them, and then they start supporting the president, let's go beat those. Let's go beat those Russians, and look what they're going to do to the people who live in Ukraine. But this has happened throughout the history of the world.
Yeah, it has. And it also, I always say war is an economy, right? If you want to get an economy that is in, kind of some dire, rough patches out of that, a war is a great thing to bring you out of it. I mean, you go back and look at World War I, World War II, both of those, the economies were in the tank. And we went to war, and it basically turned our economies around. It got everybody, back on the patriotism bandwagon, supporting the president. It's like the wins aren't just a matter of, it takes the Bidens off a radar. It's not a matter of it takes focus off a dismal administration and the State of the Union. But it also it'll be a boost for the economy. It's it's like 5 different tiers of why it makes sense to go do this, which is crazy when you think about it, because a lot of people are going to die, and we're going to lose a lot of soldiers over there if this thing goes hot.
Well, and quite frankly, I don't think the politicians care about who dies and who dies, but how many people die. Certainly not their best friends. They don't care about that. The 2022 elections are coming up in November, and there could be some global implications if things don't go a particular direction for them.
Yeah, for sure. And hey, oh, by the way, we do have quite a few dead people that vote too. So I mean, maybe,
yes, it
works
do.
out.
Yeah.
So it's insane.
It is. Okay, we're going to go to questions. So everybody start sending in your questions. Make sure you put the word question in all caps. We obviously have a lot to talk about. We're really interested for anybody in Canada. Send us info. We want to be able to update everybody. I keep hearing reports out of Australia. I'm getting conflicting emails coming out of Australia. And so I'm not real sure. I mean, it looks pretty rough from what I can tell. And I'm pretty confident things are not looking good. But it seems Australia is definitely cracking down on protesters in a way that's terrible. But it's hard to get. Have you noticed that Israel and Australia are hard to get news out of regarding protests and what the government's doing?
Yeah, I will tell you, I noticed a big difference in, for a while there, before you started seeing this giant camp set up there in Australia, I had quite a few Australians that would reach out to me and talk to me. And I got to be honest with you, a lot of them I don't hear anything out of them anymore. So I don't know if it's, they've been just, that internet piece has been cut off. They don't have the ability to see what we're seeing or what the deal is. It is a little bit concerning. And the thing is, if you look around the world, look at France right now. You've got the French are getting ready. There's some unrest going on in France. We see it in Australia. We see it in Canada. We've got it in Myanmar. We've got it. It's happening. Actually, it's happening in Ukraine. the unrest right now seems to be starting to boil up to a point where it is going to be global unrest here pretty soon. And of course, the governments, that's exactly what they want, right? That's going to give them the ability to implement what they need to do. And so we're falling right into it, whether we want to or not. I think that's kind of the point I'm making.
We are. It create more chaos. The chaos now is global. And so this, which has never happened before, in this case, they're able to create the chaos as global that I believe is eventually going to lead to Antichrist coming on the scene and having the solutions. Okay, ready for some questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
This first one, it says, question, is Russia and China going to invade America?
I don't see them doing that. And the reason I say that, and that's just my opinion, I just can't. There's too many of us here. I mean, we are all, for the most part, American-wise, we're all gun owners. And there's some pretty, you've got a lot of veterans. You've got a lot of people. I don't think they could do it. I just don't see how they would be able to do that. I think, if anything, they would probably do something to neutralize us all before they just come over here and, take what they want. But no, I think Russia is going to be focused on, as you know, Gog Magog, right? You got Ezekiel 38. You can see all of those pieces coming together. You got Erdogan talking about, using Israel to pump natural gas and oil into Europe. It's that hook that we reference in Ezekiel 38 where God actually puts a hook in their mouth and pulls them all in. I just don't see the U.S. being a part of any of that equation. I don't think it is. And I don't think China is either.
I don't either. I agree with both of those points. Speaking of Ezekiel chapter 38, this next question comes in about Ezekiel chapter 38 and says, oh, by the way, I want to point this out. Billy Crone, you know who Billy Crone is. He makes a great point on that with China and Russia invading America. He says, look, America has the largest standing military in the history of the world with 70 million gun owners. There's no army like that exists. And he says, so for an army to come in, and there's, a lot of former military people are involved in that, it makes for a very precarious situation. So this question, how does this play into Ezekiel chapter 38? You brought up a couple of things. I'll throw something else out there also. You mentioned the hooks in the jaws of Ezekiel 38, where God says to Russia, I'll turn you around, put hooks in your jaws, and I'll bring you into the land of unwalled villages. We know that's specifically speaking of Israel. Yeah. And I found this interesting. Years ago, when we had the situation with Russia and Crimea, that I remember saying back then, well, God says, I'm going to turn you around. So whatever Russia's doing, they're going to be pushing one direction, away the opposite direction of Israel in the one sense, and it's not going to go in their favor. And God's going to put hooks in their jaws to turn them around. It could be whatever they face in a place like Ukraine. And you're also going to you're going to have an evil plan that's going to be in your mind. And we know that that's also connected with the spoil that Israel has. So we can look at that and go, well, that pretty much fits energy in there. And you already mentioned Turkey being involved. Turkey now wanting to partner up with Israel over this gas line. I'm thinking that's just insanity. I can't imagine Israel ever doing that. But in the words of Don Stewart, you can't make this stuff up. And it's remarkable to watch how all of this is developing. And you mentioned before we were on the program, it is just so fast how it's happening. Yeah. Every day, it's like, what are we going to wake up to tomorrow?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. At breakneck speed, and it's if you blink, you miss it. And that's one of the things. I'll see a headline pop in, and I'm thinking, oh, I need to talk about that in the Monkey Minute, just to make sure that doesn't get overlooked, And but it's it's funny. I remember listening to Don Stewart, he talking about how it used to, you'd have to scour through lots and lots of articles and things, different newspapers from around the world to find biblically related items, big ticket items. You'd have like the establishment in 1948 of Israel, things like that. Right. But he's like, today there's hundreds every single day. It's just all around, and it's absolutely crazy. I mean, for example, there is that the trilateral agreement that came into play with Syria, with Turkey, Iran, and Russia, right? They did that in 2017, and a lot of people lost sight of that, right? And so that's when those guys started working together, and that's something that Ezekiel spoke about a long time ago. They have not had that any kind of agreement. They have, matter of fact, they've been adversaries in a lot of cases. It's crazy. And then you've got Saudi Arabia, who has a pipeline agreement with Israel, and that they've been working with them over the last couple of years. And they're also part of that Gog Magog Ezekiel 38, right? It's crazy.
The pipeline agreement with Saudi Arabia is remarkable. I think that's the one that came into play back in 1959, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
And it's just fascinating to watch all of this. It might even be with Egypt. But I look at all of this. Iran entered into an agreement in 1959 with Israel to build this pipeline because they were friends with Israel at the time. And so they did it. And now Iran, no doubt, is thinking, what did we do that for? But this pipeline is there, and it looks like it can be used. It's just fascinating to watch all of this. But you're right. These nations never got along before. Iran, Turkey, Syria. But yet the Bible tells us this is what's going to be in the last days, and it will include Russia. And it was just the other day also where Russia challenged Israel and said, hey, stay out of Syria's airspace.
Yeah.
You're watching, which Russia's never done before.
Right.
And the battle does come on the mountains of northern Israel. We know that from Ezekiel Chapter 38,
for sure.
which is the Golan Heights. It is just unbelievable. But I will say this on the Ezekiel 38 question. I don't think Ezekiel 38 is going to happen tomorrow because it still says in there it's a time. It's pretty much all the pieces of the puzzle are there, except it's a time when Israel is dwelling in peace and safety. And as of today, I know some of my friends will argue, like James will say, well, they're in peace and safety in the sense of the strong IDF and their Air Force and so forth. They can protect themselves. But I'm not so sure that's what the implication is. I get the impression that peace and safety is speaking more of a time of tranquility, and I don't see that happening yet. Yeah,
I would agree.
Okay. What do you think will happen if Canada, if shots start to be fired? Yikes.
Oof. Yeah, that could be pretty ugly. You would hope that nations around the world, including the United States, would object to that. That there would be. I mean, you got to be careful. In the right world, you could be held for war crimes. You start doing that to citizens, right? And so, but I don't know, man. Today it seems like everything is on its head. Right is wrong, wrong is right, right? Bitter is sweet.
Yeah, exactly. Isaiah is very clear. In that day, right will be wrong, wrong will be right.
And we're seeing it.
Man, we are totally seeing it. So this person says, question, fear-mongering guys. I'm not sure if they're talking about us or if they're talking about what Putin and the administration are doing. Listen, as a believer in Christ, when we see these things, we're reporting on what they're talking about. They're saying this is going to happen and that's going to happen. And we watch what these great reset globalist people are doing. And the message is we don't have to be afraid because we know how it ends. And we know what the events are pointing to. The events are pointing to the soon coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. But people are afraid. I mean, look how many people won't take off a mask.
Yeah. Well, what does Timothy talk about? That people only want to hear things that are nice on the ears, right?
Oh yeah, great point. 2 Timothy Chapter 4. In the last days, the people will raise up for themselves teachers who will itch their ears, because they will not receive the truth, but they will listen to fables. In other words, in the church, Monkey, that's what that's talking to. In the church people will say, "Well, just tell me nice things." Don't give me the truth of the Bible. I don't want to hear the facts. And then also in 2 Thessalonians, after you have the whole part about or 1 Thessalonians, after you have the part about the rapture and not being appointed to wrath, Paul then writes, don't despise the prophecies. in a Revelation, God says, I'm going to fulfill all prophecy. Daniel chapter 9, God says he will fulfill all prophecy. And what we're watching now just points to, it's like a shadow casting into the tribulation period of what the Bible talks about. So talk about these things that people might wake up.
Yeah, exactly. And it is not always, unfortunately, this is the time we're living in, and we are, as watchmen on the wall, we've got, we have to say these things. We got to tell people, because there are people that don't see it, and maybe, we wake somebody up by telling them what's going on, and they can see it for themselves,
Hopefully. When Ezekiel was told, Ezekiel, you're a watchman on the wall. If you don't tell the people, when you see the nefarious enemy coming, the things approaching that you know about, if you don't tell them, their blood is on your hands. But if you tell them and they just ignore you, then I'll deal with them and you're free. And so the Bible gives us things so we can see and warn people and say, man, you better look out. Okay, this is for you. I don't understand this question.
All right.
This comes from Flyboy 1960. Monkey, where are the MIL balloons, mill balloons? What are those?
Yeah, mill balloons.
Where are the mill balloons, and what is the coverage range, and where are they currently deployed?
Man, all right. That's a loaded question, because
I
just covered both of that in 2 episodes. I just did a Monkey Minute over the weekend, and I did another one in my sit rep today. So, Tom, what are you talking about? We've got, you remember the Google balloons or the Loon balloons?
Yeah.
So those were originally supposed to be up so it gave people internet access in remote locations, right? Well, what happened is in January 2021, the program ended, but the manufacturer, Raven Aerospace, continued on, and the military took it over. And so we have anywhere from 10 to 15, sometimes upwards of 20 of these balloons over our country that they're not moving. They're at about 80,000 feet to somewhere around a little over 60,000, but most of them are in the 60, 80,000 range. I found one today that was 90,000 range, which just blew my mind. But these things sit over our country in various locations, coast to coast. And their range, from what I'm reading, is they have a radius of about 2,500 miles that they can actually listen in and do things from a mill intel perspective, which is insane. Smokes. And they're up 24/7. They're not just something that pops up and they bring it down the next day. These things are sitting stationary over the United States, and I track them on my Sky Glass when I'm looking at the flight apps. 2,500 mile radius.
That is crazy.
Yeah, that is great.
So what are they listening to?
What are they not listening to? These things can, my understanding is they can grab everything. They can listen to cell data. They can grab cell data. They can listen to conversations.
So one of the you can't.
Go ahead.
You're not gonna be able to hide.
No, you can't hide. No, one of the state senators, just brought up the fact that they are, and he was basically calling out the alphabet companies, saying that you guys are doing this mass surveillance capture. And it all started back with G.W. Bush and, the Patriot Act. And they have since grown that capability. It's why I point out the spy planes that I do, why I show, the things that I show, is because we are being watched every single day at a degree 24/7. Yeah. And of course, if you got one of these, right, the cell phone, smartphone, you're just an enabler, really. You're listening, but they listen to everything you do. They track everything you do. It's going into these giant computer databases up in, I think they're in Denver or outside of Denver. It's crazy. And I know that sounds like fear mongering, or it may sound like conspiracy theory stuff, but I'm telling you, I'm looking at them, and I track them on the apps. They're there.
That is insane. I have a quote. I think the individual's name was Gus Hunt. He's a former CIA intelligence director. And he was asked one time about all the data collection centers. This is years ago, too. Yeah. I mean, we have way more things now. But all the data collection centers and how long they've been going on. They've been going on for a long time collecting data. Yeah. And he said, well, why are you collecting so much data? He goes, on everyone. He says, Well, we collected on everything and everyone, and we tend to hold on to it forever. And my thought is, well, and it will eventually be used against you. And I know that from Revelation 13. So I look at a program like this, and there's a lot of other programs where they talk about this. This person here is quoting Glenn Beck in the chat. And you see these different people. Dave Rubin is starting to talk about different things. Yeah. Where some people on the left are pushing back, but people on the right have been talking about it for a long time. And I'm looking at this going, man, I hope we're raptured soon, because there's a lot of information on us that's going to be used against us in the very near future, the way this is going.
Yeah. Our next conversation will be in a camp, probably side by side.
Yeah. No kidding. Okay, I want to ask you, I can see that coming. All right, I got to ask you this. I had a question here about police and so forth. I got to ask you a couple more questions, then I'm going to let you go. But sure. On the police, we see police quitting, which I know a lot of cops have said they've had it. LA sheriff is eliminating 4,000 sheriffs, deputies. What? You didn't hear about that? Yeah.
No, I didn't.
That is good. Yeah. I was with Jan Markell the other day in Minnesota, and that was one of the topics we had. So we see this happening. We see military that is going to, they're just the military leaders. Some of them are woke. I think, Monkey, what's happening is our good police and so forth are going to be replaced with what I would liken to Hitler's brown shirts. And so when you have like the mayor of New York who said, hey, crime's out of control, we need help. Well, he's left. That's a call to Washington. Hey, let's get the federal troops in here. And people will start crying out. You create enough chaos, people will cry out, hey, send us your help. We'll take any help you got. And then, boom, they bring the hammer down. Say, okay, we're here to help.
Yeah, for sure. And that's, when you take away the police force, then all of a sudden you've got citizens that are going to start, basically taking care of their own business. And then you've got a gun problem, right? Now all of a sudden you start going after the guns. It seems like just looking at the speed of all of this stuff taking shape, the gun piece is a pretty big problem. I don't know how that goes away, because there's just so many gun owners out there. It doesn't mean everybody knows how to use a gun, but there's a lot of people that own them for sure.
Well, this is an interesting point. In Revelation chapter 6, you have the four horsemen of the apocalypse. You have the white horse, which is the first one. Then you have the red horse, which represents great war. There's a sword. The Greek word term there for a great sword is megasword. It means, in other words, great war breaks out early on. After that is the black horse, which represents a planned economic catastrophe. And then you have the pale horse. Well, with the pale horse comes death by famine, death by sword, economic collapse, and death by pestilence. What's interesting is where you have death by war, you also have death by sword with the pale horse. Well, it's a different Greek word that's used there. It could be a sword of any type, and it's really speaking of a dagger. So what I've taught this as far back as 25 years ago. What that's a reference to is vigilantism, and the law. Something happens to the law keepers that causes the people to take matters into their own hands. So when you see that with Revelation chapter 6 and the pale horse, it totally fits with what you're saying too.
Yeah, that it does. And you can see it. And a dagger too that's up close and personal. Man.
Yeah,
that's
not
you're
personal.
Not hitting somebody.
That's what it is.
A little ways away. That's oof. Yeah.
Okay, another question. Could all the weapons Iran is hiding in Damascus be what takes out Damascus like the seaport of Beirut? Yes, I'll just answer that real simple. That's a question in reference to Isaiah chapter 17. Why does Israel take out Damascus in Isaiah chapter 17? There you have it. Okay, last question, then I'm going to let you go. I know I told you only 45 minutes, kept you over a few minutes. I kept Pete Garcia over last week too. But question, could this distraction be so that we're not focused on China?
I don't know. See, right now, China they're in the middle of the Olympics. Here's the other thing too. If you look at the flights that I've been tracking, this is what's crazy. I was expecting when I started tracking the flights and the movement of troops that I would see folks going to Europe, right? That was kind of what I was expecting to see. But when I started tracking the flights, what I started seeing was, oh, we're sending folks to Europe, but we're also sending folks down to the Middle East and to Kuwait and UAE and to Qatar, and in that general region, right? And then I'm seeing a shift of a lot of folks, almost equal to what I'm seeing on the right side, going to Asia, right? I'm seeing it all the way from Japan out to Anderson Air Force Base in Guam, down to Southeast Asia, down into, Philippines and all that different areas. So we seem to be moving a bunch of people off to that region as well. And I think we're pre-positioning assets for when this goes hot. I think everybody expects China to go hot when their Olympics are over. They're not going to do anything right now because it'd be hard to do. You got people in your country, you're hosting an event. But I guarantee as soon as that's up, they're going to make their move on Taiwan within probably 30 days. And so I think that's why we've got assets there to try and prevent that.
A couple of interesting things there with China. One of them is the opening ceremonies. I have not watched any of the Olympics.
Yeah, same.
But with it, apparently they paraded in the opening ceremonies a group of Uyghurs. They're persecuting the Uyghurs in China. They're like the death camps were in Nazi Germany. It's horrible what they're doing to them there. There's even talks of harvesting organs from the Uyghurs and so forth.
Oof.
So we hear these things, and they are parading them as if what they did. They did the Jane Fonda thing. They fed them, made them all looking good and everything like that, and paraded them before the cameras. Yeah, absolutely. And then as soon as they got them out of there, they probably put them in a hotel and like, you can't leave until closing ceremony. So we're going to parade you again. Yeah.
And after that, they'll get rid of them. So
they will. And then also with China and Taiwan, that is disaster for the world because China takes Taiwan. They take the computer chip industry pretty much. And they could hold the world at hostage just by computer chips, couldn't they?
They already have. I mean, you think about it, cars right now are taking, you're talking 6 months to get a car. And a lot of companies, Ford and Chevy and some of the others are actually shutting down production lines because they can't get chips. And so they're just halting the production because they don't have, their parts are coming in piecemeal. They don't have enough to really keep their production lines moving, and that assembly, it's a moving assembly line when they're putting these cars together. And if you don't have a part to finish a car out, you don't even put it in the sequence. They don't start building that car till all the parts are there, and then they load it into the assembly line, and then off it goes. So they take Taiwan. That'd be really bad on automobiles.
It sure would. Real briefly, one last thing I just want to comment on this. A question came in, I lost it, but basically the question asked, will the first beast be of the right, the second beast to be of the left, meaning political persuasion? Let me just deal with this of just matter of factly. When Antichrist comes on the scene, both him and the false prophet, first and second beast, are going to be very appealing to both the left and the right. And I think a lot of people on the right are deceived by that thought, as if Satan only wants people on the left side of the aisle. Well, no, Satan wants people on both sides of the aisle. So when Antichrist appears, he's going to seem to have the solutions that both political sides want the answer to. So deceiving will he be that Jesus even says, if possible, even the elect would be deceived. And I think, Monkey, what we're watching now is things developing with chaos and people crying out, we want a solution. Where's the fixer? Somebody fix this, because they know Biden, or flashbang as you call him, is a nightmare for the world. And we see all of the other problems that are taking place in the whole world. Listen, Antichrist is going to come on the scene to appeal to both sides. Satan's smarter than everybody else that's on this planet.
Yeah. I mean, even though it looks like sometimes you think the left is just nothing but pure evil, that's not necessarily right. I mean, we've got, as you see people that have kind of, we call them rhinos on the right, where they're just a wolf in sheep's clothing. He doesn't care. He's going for the soul, man. He's not looking at, what it says on your voter registration. He didn't care about that.
Yeah, no, he does not. Hey, a couple of things I got to mention in closing, a couple of business things. Everyone, next Sunday night, February 20, we're going to be live, and I'm also going to be live on hopeforourtimes.com website. I'm excited about it. We're going to start on YouTube. I'm going to say as much on YouTube as I can do before I get to a point where it's too sensitive for the YouTube people. and algorithms. So, but we are going to be live on Hope for Our Times website. We're also going to be live on a few other outlets. People are asking us about Roku and so forth. So we're going to go live everywhere that we possibly can. YouTube will go live as long as we can next Sunday evening. That all starts. I'm excited about being able to have that opportunity. So that is February 20th. Also, let you know, I have Monkey and Pete Garcia both agreed to do a Monday live with me. So that's going to be pretty cool. That's going to come up. We don't have a date yet. Hopefully it'll be sometime in March. They're both from the good part of America. They're both from Texas. I am not. And but I appreciate your prayers. But that's going to be cool. I'll announce that when that date's coming up, probably in March. And look, everybody can see it on the video right now. You see MonkeyWerx. You see how to get a hold of him, everything that he does. Make sure that you do. You're going to be really blessed. And also, Monkey, we have a Revelation series that you host that I do with James Cadiz on your channel too, don't you?
Yeah, the Watchman Hour. We absolutely do. And we've covered every book in Revelation so far. I say book, every chapter in Revelation, up until we've got probably 2 more rounds here where we're going to cover, thinking the next one's going to be 19 and 20, then we'll do 21 and 22, and then we'll be done with that Revelation series. And it's been pretty even eye-opening for myself. Having you two come in and do that it's a wealth of knowledge. It's incredible because you guys have peeled back things that have kind of been a little bit of a mystery for folks, where you think it means one thing and you guys explain it and you go, wow, I had a totally wrong read on that. And so I've learned a lot from it. And I know my followers and listeners have definitely have been very, I get a lot of messages of how much they love it and they look forward to every one we do. So yeah, for sure. It's been fun.
It is. It's cool. It's really a lot of fun to do it. And also let everybody know this. I was at a conference with Jan Markell and Mark Henry in Minnesota last Thursday night. It was live, but Jan Markell's YouTube channel was challenged. So what I'm going to do is take some of the clips over this week and post little short clips on my YouTube channel. And her channel is going to be up next week. And then she'll be able to have the entire event up on her channel. But I'll be showing you some of the highlights throughout this week, among some other updates I want to bring your way, some news items. It's going to be great. And make sure you go to Monkey, like and share his program, his YouTube channel, and also like and share this. And really appreciate it. It certainly helps us out. And really, we appreciate your prayers more than anything else. Thanks, everyone. There were so many questions that came in. You know how fast they go through, Monkey, right? You see one and it's gone, it's gone, it's gone. I try to catch them and capture them, but man, they come in fast.
Yeah, you can't. And if you pause the screen for just a second, as soon as you touch it, it just goes. It's gone. Yeah, you don't.
Yep. All right. Great seeing you, Monkey. I will be in touch soon. Oh, by the way, I had a really good barbecue the other day. I'm going to send you pictures.
Yeah, let me know. I'm all down for some barbecue, and I love a good barbecue. So
I'll give you a hint. There were some Omaha steaks I had.
Nice.
Guess where I got those from.
Yeah, I wonder.
God bless you, everybody. Thanks, Monkey.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.